The Tampa Bay Buccaneers have lined up their first run of interviews for the offensive coordinator job, one of which is a familiar face and a Super Bowl champion with the Bucs. Let's go.
You are Locked On Buccaneers, your daily Tampa Bay Buccaneers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, and welcome to the Locked On Bucs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We are your daily podcast covering the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, free and available on all platforms, including YouTube, and we thank you for making us your first listen or view of the day. I am James Yarcho, deputy editor of SB Nation's BucsNation.com, joined as I always am, or almost always am,
when we can make it happen.
By our good friend Evan Klosky of 10 Tampa Bay. Of course, you can check out what he's doing on 10 Tampa Bay and at 10tampabay.com. And of course, you can follow everything on Twitter at @JYarcho_Bucs, at @eKlosky, WTSP, and at Locked On Bucs, which at Locked On Bucs is currently the default Twitter that I'm using because I still can't access my personal account. Working on it, but I'm kind of locked out right now, so that's a lot of fun. Today's episode is brought to you by Ultimate Football GM. Ever dreamed of becoming an NFL GM and managing your football franchise? Then this game is definitely for you. To download the game, just visit ultimate-gm.com or look it up on the App Store. Our listeners get a 100% free boost to their franchise when using promo code LOCKEDON, all one word, all caps, in the game. Again, we thank you for making us your first listen or view of the day. Evan, you're going to get the opportunity to play GM coming up in just a little bit. But we have to start things off by talking about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They didn't announce it, but it has been reported now that they kind of have their first set of interviews for the vacant offensive coordinator job lined up as they begin their quest to revamp the team following their disappointing season. They requested and were granted permission to interview former Lions offensive coordinator and Jaguars passing game coordinator Jim Bob Cooter, Broncos passing game coordinator Klint Kubiak, and Vikings wide receiver coach and Buccaneers Super Bowl champion Keenan McCardell in the first wave of announced candidates. It is worth noting they did request permission to interview Texans offensive coordinator Pep Hamilton, but he declined. Now, Rick Stroud of the Tampa Bay Times pointed out that Hamilton has a son who is a star high school quarterback in Houston, still has 2 years left in high school, which could be a reason that Hamilton turned down the request, as well as the fact that the team that he's on the staff for is currently searching for a head coach. So maybe he's thinking, why would I risk losing out on that opportunity by taking this interview when I want to stay here in Houston? I want to be part of the Texans. So, Evan, of the names that were mentioned that have been announced as candidates for this job, do any of these pop out to you at all as like, oh, well, I hadn't thought of him before, but that could work?
I mean, I wasn't thinking about Keenan McCardell. I'll tell you that right now. From these crop of names, I am pretty underwhelmed. Let's just say that. I know Jim Bob Cooter is still young. I mean, he hasn't even hit 40 yet. But, he had a stint with the Lions, and I understand the Lions didn't have great talent. He had Matthew Stafford, though. And there's nothing about that offense that ever – I looked up the stats before we got on. Nothing in that offense wowed us. I mean, even though he had in 2017 a top 10 scoring, the Lions were top 10 in scoring offense. Their passing game wasn't necessarily prolific. The rushing game each and every year was terrible. And I would have to imagine if you're Todd Bowles, you're looking for somebody who can frickin' run the ball. But, there's a lot to be said because the Buccaneers situation all, hinges on whether or not Tom Brady's really going to be there. And I hate to always make this about the Tom Brady show, but, it's not really like the Buccaneers have the sexiest job out there if he doesn't return. I mean, let's think about the OC jobs. You have the Ravens, who we think are going to have Lamar Jackson. You have the Rams, where you get to work for McVay and have Stafford. You have Justin Herbert and the Chargers. Potentially not really this season, but probably in the future, Kyler Murray with the Cardinals. And then, the Buccaneers I clump with, teams like the Jets, teams like, pretty much the Jets, like the Commanders, teams that have some really good pieces if you can just find that quarterback. But, I don't think that on paper the Buccaneers are the sexiest job out there, so maybe they're just doing their due diligence. But, I'm sorry, but anyone associated with the Broncos offense this past year, I am ruling out, even though I know that Klint Kubiak has known Mike Evans for like a decade, going back to his Texas A&M days. And do you really want to give Keenan McCardell his first OC? Do you want to, if Tom Brady comes back, you really want to go with somebody who's brand spanking new to the OC job and calling plays? I understand he's a former player, but you just are coming off a Byron Leftwich situation where it's very similar type of resume. I don't know if that's really what Todd Bowles is looking to pin his future on, right? Like, this could be Todd Bowles' last shot at being a head coach. I don't know if I'd want a beginner out there, but I'm all for doing the due diligence. I just first crop of names, meh. And, I know Jim Bob Cooter's with Jacksonville, and Trevor Lawrence has been great this year, yada, yada, yada. But, I'm going to give credit to Doug Peterson a little bit more than Jim Bob Cooter. Fair, unfair, whatever. We did the same thing with Bruce Arians and Byron the past couple of years. And fair, unfair, there was one significant difference outside of a couple of players. I just, it is what it is.
I do find the Keenan McCardell interview to be very interesting because you make a good point. Do you really want to, does Todd Bowles want to hitch his wagon to somebody who would be a first-time offensive coordinator? But at the same time, he could be the next great offensive coordinator, and this could be an opportunity to really build something. Whether or not that, influences Brady's decision to come back or not, time would tell. I think it would be kind of interesting to see, somebody like Keenan McCardell, who's getting their first opportunity, hitched to a guy who might be a new quarterback. They might draft one or put it off until next year. And if they're bad enough with Trask or Gabbard at the helm, that they might be able to land a Caleb Williams. And now all of a sudden you have the offensive coordinator and the rookie quarterback duo that get to work together and grow something very interesting. There's pros and cons to first timers and retreads. We know that sometimes the retreads work out, sometimes they don't. Whether or not it would impact Brady, I don't know. I guess we'll find out. But
it's got to be someone who Brady. And by the way, right, Bill O'Brien off the table going to New England,
right?
So, which. Good on New England, because if they didn't have that connection, I don't know why anybody would want that job. But Bill O'Brien, obviously, Mac Jones and Bill O'Brien, they have Alabama ties, yada, yada, yada. There obviously would have to be the prerequisite of Brady approving of them. But, there's also, there's this general knowledge, I'm sure, of like, hey, Tom, we're going to pick our guy, but we would love your opinion on this guy. And if you do so choose to come back, is this somebody you would work with? So I don't think that they would ever put someone on the desk of Tom Brady that they, would want him to reject. I don't know if he has that kind of power, but certainly it would weigh a lot in just a hiring process if a guy like Tom Brady is like, you want no part of this.
Right. Yeah, it's as you said, the first crop of names are kind of underwhelming. At the same time, I find them to be a little bit interesting. And who knows, maybe there's a candidate that they have already interviewed that we just don't know about yet.
Maybe.
That information tends to kind of pop out every once in a while. It's like, oh yeah, by the way, last week the Buccaneers already interviewed such and such. So we will continue to monitor the offense coordinator situation as you would expect, but we are going to get to Evan's takes on what or who the Bucs should put their focus on when it comes to their in-house free agents. That's coming up here on a WTSP Wednesday episode of Locked On Bucs. This episode of Locked On Bucs is brought to you by Ultimate Football GM. You've heard me talk about this mobile game app, and I cannot tell you how much fun I had competing against my fellow Locked On NFL hosts in our network tournament, even though they all cheated, including David, and I should have been the rightful winner.
Yeah, David's always a cheater.
But this, no shame to David. He actually is very good at the game, enjoys playing it. I enjoy playing it. And now you can enjoy playing it as well. If you've ever dreamed of becoming an NFL GM and managing a football franchise, your dream can come true, and this game is definitely for you. You're going to manage every strategic aspect of your team, play through seasons, and lead your team to glory, trying to build a dynasty. With Ultimate Football GM, you're responsible for controlling the destiny of your franchise by hiring the right coaches and coordinators, trading players, making draft picks, navigating your franchise through free agency and the draft, all the ups and downs of a season, all this in a challenging and realistic game world. Ultimate Football GM is completely free and playable offline, so you can play on the go as you want to, when you want to. And for Locked On Bucs fans, Ultimate Football GM will be hosting a special competition where you can win amazing monthly prizes. Stay tuned for details in an upcoming episode. Locked On Bucs listeners can also get a 100% free boost to their franchise when using the promo code Locked On, all one word, all caps, in the game store. That's Locked On, all caps. Make sure you check it out today. To download the game, just visit ultimate-gm.com or look it up on the App Store. That's ultimate-gm.com. Ultimate Football GM. Start your dynasty today. Thank you again for making Locked On Bucs your first listen or view every single day. Make sure you subscribe to Locked On NFL and get daily conversations on the biggest NFL stories, plus in-depth analysis on the biggest games with NFL key predictions every Friday. Monday, local insiders cover the weekend with game-to-game episodes. Locked On NFL available on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. Evan, we were just talking about running your own franchise and taking them through the ebbs and flows of the draft and free agency. And the Buccaneers certainly have some key free agents coming up this offseason, and you can't bring everybody back like they did a couple of years ago, right? There's no money for that. We know the cap is an illusion. It's fake. It's just like Matthew McConaughey says.
Yeah. To an extent, the bill eventually comes due. The party has to end, but you can go into the wee hours of the night if you want to.
Yeah, and there's no guarantee that Brady's walking back through that door. So Jason Light has to walk that fine line between getting the cap situation back in order and trying to keep the Buccaneers set up for future success. There might be a couple of bad years coming up once Brady leaves or retires or whatever the case may be. They have to find a quarterback. There's some, really good players that are going to walk out the door, but there's still that fine line of making sure that the future building blocks are still there. So minus Tom Brady, he doesn't count. He doesn't exist. If he doesn't know what he's effing doing, we're not going to speculate on it for this exercise. Who is the number one free agent that the Bucs have to make sure that they have under contract for 2023 and beyond?
Got to be Levante. Not only of what he means to the organization, the fan base, but they are thin at inside linebacker. Who is next if it's not Levante next to Devin? right? I mean, not a great situation, I'll tell you that right now. Obviously, they would have to invest heavily in the draft on that. But to me, I think the most glaring weakness, if you were to remove them, ignoring Brady, would be removing Lavonte David from this defense and putting his replacement player in there. So I think that would be number one for me.
See, and I'm honestly a little bit surprised that you gave that answer. Not because I don't like Lavonte David. Obviously, I love Lavonte. He's been a long-time Buck. He and Mike Evans deserved that Super Bowl a couple of years ago more so than pretty much anybody else on the roster because of all the things that they had been through. But David went on record on Monday's episode that he thinks that Lavonte David is gone. I will echo that sentiment. I do not think Lavonte David is back. I really, truly don't. I hope I'm wrong. And if I'm wrong, you all can roast me in the YouTube comments. I will welcome it with a smile on my face. But I just don't think at this stage in his career, if Brady is gone, that he is going to want to be part of a rebuild. He is going.
Yeah, I agree with you. The question isn't whether I think he'll be back. It's whether number one person I would call, and whether we believe that Lavonte is going to actually come back or not. Separate debate. I agree with you. If Brady's gone, I don't know why Lavonte would come back.
Right.
He has to go chase his championship somewhere else. He only has probably 2 or 3 maybe great years left in him before it's all said and done. I mean, you can't be playing that long at that position. So, I mean, he just came off a fantastic year. He's got, he knows that his window personally is closing. So, so me, the GM versus me, Lavonte, 2 different answers.
Yeah. All right. That is absolutely fair. But at the same time, if I was going to rank someone, I'm not going to get into my own personal rankings, but I take a look at a position like corner where you have 2 starting caliber corners that are both about to become free agents. It's going to be hard to replace 2 of them. You can replace one with a day 2 pick. Probably not both, but outside of Lavonte, who, is the heart and soul of the defense and has been for over a decade, what are maybe 1 or 2 other pending free agents that the Bucs have in-house that you feel it's really, really important to make sure that no matter what you have to do, what kind of money you have to move around, are back with the Buccaneers next season?
I'm a firm believer in Jamel Dean. He's going to be the most expensive Buck that you have to re-sign. I mean, out of everybody, ignoring Tom Brady, which honestly he might, depending on Tom Brady's deal, he might make total more. But looking at Spot Track, right? Sport Track or Spot Track?
Spot Track.
Spot Track. I'm right. Okay. Yeah. Just want to make sure I attribute correctly. He's going to get somewhere in the range of 3 years, $50 million. It's a lot of money for a team with salary cap issues. So while I think in my head you have Todd Bowles, a defensive coach, what it would look like if you had Carlton Davis and Jamel Dean next to each other and what you can do figuring out the middle. Again, it's a tough question to answer without the knowledge of Brady, because if Brady leaves, I'm more willing to say, screw it. Dean should sign elsewhere. We're not going to be competitive in the next few years, probably. And I'd rather just go bargain shopping. I'll bring in Mike Edwards, Sean Murphy Bunting for cheaper and let Dean get paid elsewhere. But, if Brady comes back, Dean should be a priority because he's an excellent player. You watched him grow in your organization. You built him into a stud cover corner, and you're going to let somebody else reap the benefits of your program developing him? That kind of sucks.
Yeah, but on the flip side, he might be a little jilted from not getting to participate in the wild card weekend game. He was
money will make him forgive that. You know what I'm saying?
Maybe.
He's not happy about it, but you pay the man, he'll be back. But I certainly would be pissed, and rightfully so.
And all due respect to Spot Track, David and I use that website a lot, and to track things, see what their estimated market value is. I could be wrong, but I think 3 years, $50 million is going to be more than what the Bucs just gave Carlton Davis. I don't remember his contract, but I know he took a little bit of a discount to come back. I can't see the Bucs paying Jamel Dean more than they're already paying.
Carlton Davis was 3 years, about $45 million.
Yeah, see, that's going to be the kicker. And I know that was below what SpotTrack had estimated for his market value, because they had put him at like 18.5 a year or something like that. It was almost 20 million a year. And we thought Davis was gone. He took a little bit less to stay. It'll be interesting to see if Jamel Dean does the same, or if he says, you know what, I got my ring. Now I'm going to go get my bag. And can't blame the guy for doing something like that. But some other guys that are looking for a ring will be playing this Sunday. And Evan, as we always do on WTSP Wednesday, we are going to get your predictions for those games coming up in just a moment right here on Locked On Bucs. This episode of Locked On Bucs is brought to you in part by FanDuel. The NFL playoffs are here, and we are really excited about our new sports betting partner for Locked On, because they are the #1 sportsbook in America, FanDuel. And if you're new to FanDuel, that is even better. They have so many great features that make betting on sports fun and easy. New customers join today to get started with $150 in free bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Just sign up at FanDuel.com/locked-on. FanDuel has all of your favorite bets, from the money line to the point spreads to player props. Plus, you can even combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with a same-game parlay. Thank you, Bengals, for ruining my parlay that would have hit last weekend. But that's neither here nor there.
It's here and there.
I'll place another parlay this weekend. I legitimately love FanDuel. It became legal in the state of Ohio on New Year's Day. In fact, right at the moment that Ohio State missed the field goal against Georgia.
Oh boy, here we go.
I was able to start betting with FanDuel, and I did, and it has been a blast. It is so much fun. All on the app. It's safe, secure, and super easy to use. So football fans, don't miss out. Place your first $5 bet to get $150 in free bets, win or lose, at FanDuel.com/locked-on. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Wrapping things up here on a WTSP Wednesday edition of the Locked On Bucs podcast, and it is championship weekend. The Final Four, rematch of the AFC Championship from last year. The NFC Championship features the unlikeliest of quarterbacks against a team that was a season-long powerhouse. So, Evan, let's hear some predictions from you. We are going to start off with the NFC Championship between the San Francisco 49ers and the Philadelphia Eagles. What is your bold prediction for the NFC Championship?
Can I say the bold prediction is the Niners winning? They're underdogs, right? Is that bold enough?
Well, we'll get to your score in a moment, sir.
I dig. Wondering how bold I have to be. No, I mean, I guess my bold prediction is the Eagles won't score a touchdown in the first half.
Okay, that's bold. I should have waited to take a drink until after you had already said that. Wow. Now, the 49ers defense is outstanding, but Jalen Hurts is on a different level this year. A.J. Brown is that dude. And even if they're locking up, A.J. Brown, you still got Devontae Smith, who's out there making plays. Miles Sanders, in my opinion, criminally underrated.
They might get a handful of field goals, but they're not going to be able to punch it in.
That's the kind of bold we're looking for. All right, so NFC Championship score prediction. What do you got?
I'm going to go Niners 17, Eagles 16. Yeah, I'm going under. I'm going opposite of what you're all thinking. People going to go over it? No, I'm going under. I love this Niners team, and Buccaneers fans really need to pay attention to this contest, because even though the common thread of information is that Tom Brady will stay on the East Coast. I do think if San Fran came calling, he would maybe make a life exception for 1 year to fulfill his childhood dream and join an organization that is built to win right now.
6 conference championship appearances for the Niners in the last 11 years.
Yeah. So, I mean,
They
check all the boxes outside of living on the East Coast. Every single box they check off. Reputable organization. John Lynch is, the GM there, highly respected as well. The defense is uber talented and unbelievable. You have playmakers all over the field offensively, stout offensive line, great running back, rushing game. It's really just like Tom can go into that offense and make it easily to the NFC Championship game based on nothing more than just not turning the ball over, which is pretty much – and I give Brock Purdy tons of credit because there are a lot of third-string quarterbacks who cannot do what he is doing and be as composed as he is. But he has been unbelievable with not turning the ball over, letting his playmakers do the dirty work, and him just facilitating, right? So that's I think that's something important for Buccaneers fans to watch. Now, if they make the Super Bowl, I don't know how you can pull the plug on Brady on Purdy to bring in Brady. It's just I don't know. That's weird.
That's a tough situation.
Yeah, but if you don't win this game, you might be able to say, look, Purdy took us as far as he can go, yada, yada, yada. So to be determined on that front, but I do think the Niners are going to win. I just think that the Niners are the best team in the NFL.
Interesting. All right. Well, and of course, Tom Brady, John Lynch, former teammates. People forget that.
That's right. I forgot about that. That's a good call.
John Lynch had a cup of coffee in New England, got through preseason and decided, you know what? I think
out.
It's time for me to hang it up.
I'm out. You see this crazy quarterback? I'm out.
All right. The AFC Championship, the rematch, the Kansas City Chiefs hosting the Cincinnati Bengals at Burrowhead Stadium. Patrick Mahomes has not beaten Joe Burrow. He's dealing with the high ankle sprain. I think the Cincinnati Bengals look like the best team in football right now, top to bottom, even with Eli Apple, who is terrible at the football, popping off on Twitter for God knows what reason, because he's Eli Apple and it just makes no sense.
That is one former Buckeye I don't claim.
You have to, because you're not allowed to claim Joe. You have to claim
Eli.
Eli.
I will say it is a big pet peeve of mine when Ohio State fans claim Joe. It's like, no, because it's like, if that's how it's going to go, then you can't claim Justin Fields. Like, that's Georgia's Justin Fields. You can't do that.
That's a good call. All right. I like where your head's at. What is your bold prediction for the AFC Championship?
Bold prediction is that this game is a lot closer than people think. I think everyone's like penciling in the Bengals. I'll say that the Chiefs will be leading in the first half by double digits.
So almost an exact, well, we haven't gotten to your score yet, but last year, Kansas City was in firm control of that game, went for it at the end of the half, couldn't convert it into a touchdown, didn't turn it into points. Then came the second half comeback. So the Chiefs up by double digits at halftime. Do they hold on and win, or do the Bengals come back and break their hearts again? What's your score prediction?
I'm going to go Cincinnati 27, Kansas City 24. My heart believes Kansas City is going to figure it out because I believe in Andy Reid. He's, right next to Belichick, the next best head coach of his era. I mean,
he's so good.
That's what makes good coaches great, and great Hall of Famers is the ability to adjust throughout different time periods in football, that no matter what the trend has been, Andy Reid knows it and he's ahead of you. So his coaching, I'm going to imagine that Mahomes is going to get injected with whatever he's got to get injected with to do what he's got to do and gut it out, knowing that he's got at least like 13 days to prepare for the Super Bowl if he gets it. So my heart believes after all the crap they've taken from Cincinnati and national media about how they're going to lose this game because they can't beat the Bengals, that they've been studying, and this is the time. This is the time they're going to step up. Having said that, Kansas City's weakness is pass defense. And if there's one team not to struggle in pass defense against, it's Cincinnati Bengals, who don't need to necessarily rely on Joe Mixon to get their offense moving, which is really where the Chiefs' defense has its strength, with Chris Jones up there on the defensive line. So it's a little bit of a mismatch. So while I think that the Chiefs come out hot and they got all these ideas and it's going to work, eventually Cincinnati will figure it out and head to back-to-back Super Bowls.
Yeah, I saw that Mahomes already has as many conference championship appearances in his career as both Peyton Manning and Aaron Rodgers. That is wild. And everybody
5 straight.
Yeah.
I think it's only been done twice in NFL history. One, of course, being Tom Brady with the Patriots.
Yeah, he's 9 away from tying Tom Brady now for most conference championship appearances of all time. And everybody keeps talking about the next Tom Brady. And Joe Burrow is rightfully starting to garner some of that attention. So it makes me think, is Burrow Mahomes the new Brady Manning, where it seemed like Manning just could not get over that hump? He managed to do it twice, but is Burrow going to be that hurdle that Patrick Mahomes just can't get over? It's going to be an electric game.
Yeah, it's kind of tough because, Burrow also didn't catch Mahomes during the rookie contract era of the Chiefs, right?
That's true.
That's where you develop greatness is, when you're getting paid, are you still able to take your team to the promised land? And, Brady won 3 of 4 out of the gates. And then, he kept going back to the Super Bowl, but eventually he had that 10-year drought of not winning one. It's hard. So Burrow's right now enjoying, and not to mention, not just Joe. Jamar Chase has to get paid. T. Higgins has to get paid. Tyler Boyd is still there. Most of the defense needs to get paid. So they have tons of cap space, but it's going to be used up. You got to give Burrow his contract. It's
all going to Burrow and Chase. And I've already told Bengals fans, I was like, prepare yourself. T. Higgins is probably gone. T. Higgins could be a number 1 somewhere, and they will pay him to be a number 1. And the Bengals won't have that money for him because you have to pay Burrow. You have to pay Chase. You're going to have to pay some of these defensive players. I already think Jesse Bates is out after this year, but that's a conversation for another day or another podcast. Check out my buddy.
We should just cross it out. All right. Yeah. All you Bengals fans, stick around. We're going into overtime.
Check out James Rapine over there at Locked On Bengals. He's my boss at allbengals.com. But we are out of here for this one. Thank you again for making Locked On Bucs your first listen or view of the day. Now, for your second listen, check out Locked On NFL, bringing you local insights you love to the national spotlight with daily conversations on the biggest NFL stories. Locked On NFL, available on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast. David will be back tomorrow. Not sure if he's lining up a guest or not because there's no crossover. We'll find out. David always brings the heat, though.
He's coming. He might have Tom Brady. Yeah, he might not. But you better tune in to find out.
That's right. Yeah. Maybe Tom Brady's decided what he wants to do, and he's going to announce that on the Locked On Bucs podcast. Just, hit subscribe on YouTube, get notified when the show pops up, and boom, you're good to go. If you want to help David out, if he doesn't get Tom Brady on the show, go ahead and send him topics, questions, ideas over to LockedOnBucsPodcast@gmail.com. Check out everything Evan is doing on 10 Tampa Bay and at 10tampabay.com. Check out my work over at BucsNation.com. And of course, follow everything on Twitter at Locked On Bucs, at JYarcho_Bucs, and at eKlosky WTSP. Hope you all have an absolutely outstanding day. Stay safe, stay healthy, fire the cannons. And we thank you so much for joining us right here at Locked On Bucs.